Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be bringing you the endgame guide for Diablo 4. Now to jump right in, the first thing you need to be doing to get into the endgame of Diablo 4 is complete the campaign. That's going to be the biggest thing. You won't be able to do any of the endgame activities until you complete the campaign and you're completely through with the story. So the first thing I recommend is just grind through that story. It's a super good story, enjoy it, have fun with it, and overall, I hope everyone enjoys it. Now, once it is completed, what can you do to get towards the capstone dungeon, which is how you're going to unlock World Tier 3? So, the first thing you want to do is say you completed the campaign relatively quickly. You didn't do a lot of side quests. You didn't really veer off from it. You should be in the mid-30s. You should be around anywhere from 32 to 38, depending on how many mobs you killed and if you did any side quests. Now, the capstone dungeon, which is located right here, is going to have mobs that are around level 53. Now you're going to know your character and how strong your build is. Some builds were able to kill this capstone dungeon at level 36 and 38, but your build might not be that way. I recommend, just to make it easy for yourself, level up a little bit, be at least mid 40s, maybe even level 50. Now how can you do that? Now the best way to do that, it is not the fastest, but it will save you time in the future. What I would recommend is doing your Renown. So at World Tier 1 and 2, you can do the first 3 Renown. And what that'll do is it'll give you 2 skill points and a potion. Now this is really going to increase the power of your build. The potion, your survivability, and the skill points are huge for adding to your build. Now what's the best way to get the first 3 Renown? The first thing I would start with is going through and beating all the strongholds. Because once you have all the strongholds, you can get all the waypoints. The strongholds are 300 each and the waypoints are 20 each. That's a huge chunk of your Renown for the first 3 levels right there. Now what you should do next, don't worry about side quests. Don't worry about side dungeons. You'll probably have some side dungeons done just from doing them, through your journey so far. Focus on Altars of Lilith. And the reason is Season 1's coming up, and if you're going to play Season 1, you want to have your Altars of Lilith done because they stay. Say you complete your Altars of Lilith now, you won't have to do them again in Season 1. So you should go ahead and get them done now, and if you complete Waypoints, Strongholds, Altars of Lilith, and while doing your Altars of Lilith, you'll discover almost the entire map. That will get you all the Renown you need for the first 3 levels. And do that for all 5 zones. You'll get 10 skill points, which is pretty huge, and 5 potions. So you'll have 9 potions in total. Now, once you have this, you should be ready to either take on World Tier 3, or you might have already taken on World Tier 3, and you might be in World Tier 3, which is great. At World Tier 3, you can start doing the 4th level of Renown, which this one doesn't give you a little bit. You get 80 additional obols that you can carry, which is good because you do cap pretty fast, but overall it's not going to give you an increase in damage or anything like that. Overall, the only one that will actually increase your damage is the 5th one, the Paragon, and that one we can't do actually until World Tier 4, so we need to go ahead and kind of put that in the back burner for now. So what happened was we did the capstone dungeon, we have the Renown from all 5 zones, the first 3 levels, and now we are in World Tier 3. Now let's take a real quick look at the difference in World Tier 3. The first off I want to cover is the experience gain. 100% bonus to experience. So this is really going to help leveling up. You're going to notice you're going to shoot up levels very, very fast as soon as you come into World Tier 3. Monsters drop 50% more gold, and monsters overcome 20% resistance. So the monsters are going to be tougher, they're going to be higher leveled, but they do drop a lot more XP. Now we have some new stuff coming in. Sacred items and unique items can drop. Now this is really important because as of right now you probably have several legendaries throughout the campaign and you kind of have a build together. What your next goal should be is farming these uniques and basically getting the newer version for your character. So for instance, a unique is the exact same character. So take these gloves for example. These are legendary gloves and these are not uniques. Now I could get these exact same legendary gloves as a unique, but just all the stats would be better. They'd be higher item power, they'd be a little bit better. Like these are sacreds, which come from World Tier 4, but you can get the same thing in unique. And unique's better than normal. Like so all of my gear is sacred because I've spent some time in World Tier 4. And that's really what you want to do is when you're in World Tier 3, all of these are just going to be basic legendary gloves. It won't have the sacred, it won't have unique, it'll just say legendary. You want to focus on getting the sacred upgrade for all your gear, especially your weapons. That's where you're going to notice the biggest increase. Your weapons, you always want to choose the highest item power and the highest for everything. it will hugely increase your damage and overall make you a much stronger character. So now we're well deep into World Tier 3. And what do we want to do in World Tier 3 to help prepare ourselves for World Tier 4? Well, the main thing we need to get is levels. And with the most recent change that just happened 2 days ago, if you haven't seen that, check out my video on it. We dove through the patch notes. I explained everything that's changed and what's different. Now, you want to be farming what are called Nightmare Dungeons. Now, you're going to start getting these in World Tier 3. And what's going to happen is they're going to pop up in your consumables. And they'll drop on the ground. They'll be blue. And they'll look different. They'll different color than anything else. So make sure you pick them up. And when they first start dropping, they're going to be Tier 1s. Now, Nightmare Dungeons can go all the way up to Tier 50. And the higher the tier, the more difficult. Now, since we're in World Tier 3, we're in a lower tier of World Tier. They're going to drop really low tiers. They're going to start at 1. And as you do more and get more levels, they're going to start going up slowly. Now, why are these important? Specifically, just for XP, Nightmare Dungeons give a ton of XP compared to normal dungeons. They're actually the fastest way to level in the game right now. Now, not only this, they have a higher drop rate for legendaries, ancestrals, and uniques. So overall, it's going to help you get more gear, more XP, and everything. Now, why are they Nightmare? So the reason they're Nightmare is because of the dungeon affixes. So you're going to have one thing that helps you, which is the green. You're going to have 2 debuffs that will hurt you. And so how this works is in each dungeon, they're all different. So like this one, my character would have increased healing, and all of the elites will have a shock ability that will be able to shock you and stun you, which is quite annoying. This would be a quite annoying nightmare to do. Now also, monster poison damage. That means the monsters will be doing poison damage to you and taking you down with hits. Now this is going to be the same exact dungeon as you see. So say I were to use this dungeon, is going to pop up here, a little thing that's saying that we've used it. It's going to tell us to open up the map. Now this is a normal dungeon. You can do this dungeon without it being a nightmare. The only thing this does is it takes the normal dungeon and upgrades it with these dungeon affixes. So here you can actually see the affixes. So your healing received is increased by 10%. Elites always have the electric lance affix, which allows them to stun you. And monsters deal an additional 22% of their physical damage dealt as poison over 5 seconds. So now that we have this, you can actually, part of the new update is just click on it and you can actually teleport. Now we're not going to teleport the video, but that is how Nightmare Dungeons work. And you want to be doing these because not only do they give you more XP, they give you better gear, but they also are critical in upgrading stuff past level 50. And I'll show you that. So after you get to level 50, you've maxed out your skill tree, you're done with that. You move on to the Paragon board, which is the endgame equivalent of the skill tree. And what's going to happen is you're going to get 3 Paragon points per level to use in your Paragon board. And you'll notice there are going to be glyph sockets in the middle of these big diamonds, and they'll be empty for you. You won't have anything in here. And so what's going to happen is these glyphs will drop on the ground randomly, and you don't have to pick them up twice. Once you pick up a glyph, you have it forever. And what's going to happen is you're going to find the glyph that you like. Like for instance, in my first diamond here, I like the control glyph. It's, you know, crowd controlled enemies. My build does a lot of crowd control, so it's just, you know, 6% damage, just a straight damage buff, which is huge. And what's going to happen is you're going to slot it in here, and it's going to be level 0. So what happens is when you complete a nightmare dungeon, an immunity bubble will spawn around you. So just make sure you don't die. As soon as you complete the objective, immunity bubble spawns, and enemies won't be able to hurt you. And in the middle of this, there's going to be a little platform, and you're going to click on it, and the glyphs that you have are going to come up. And you're going to be able to select which one you want to put experience in. And by completing these nightmare dungeons, you level up the glyph socket and make them more powerful. It's going to unlock more nodes that you can use, and it's also going to increase the stats per the glyph. Now this is really important. You want to get your glyphs leveled up, and overall, Nightmare Dungeons are the best way to do it. Now, Nightmare Dungeons are not the only thing you need to be doing in Tier 3, Other things that you should be doing are keeping an eye on Hell Tides. Now right now, there are no Hell Tides on the map, but they will be a glowing red area that is usually one zone, and what Hell Tides do is they will spawn. You will go there, and for every enemy you kill, you get some points. Now there's going to be chests scattered throughout the map in the Helltide, and you'll use these points to unlock chests. And the chest can either be a random chest, or it can be something directly, like it'll say like Helltide chest for boots, Helltide chest for weapon, Helltide chest for that. And so it's really good to farm a specific gear piece if needed. You know, if you need it, it's a little bit lower, you need it. That's great. Now, not only do they drop that, but they drop unique crafting materials that can only be gathered in Helltides. So Helltides need to be doing, oh, and look at that, one just spawned. And so you need to be doing these Helltides and opening the chest to get the crafting material. That's going to be very, very important in the future in World Tier 4 when we're crafting our perfect gear. So when you see a Helltide, go spend some time in it, open a chest. They last for an hour, and you can open as many chests as you want. So you can go in there, farm it, open a chest, do what you want. Now, a little tip in the Helltides, the best way to do it is go into the Helltide and find the open world event, the ones that are in a kind of glowing circle. You go in there, you activate it, you clear it. That will give you the most Helltide points, and it's going to be the best way to open your chest. I'd recommend when you see Helltide, go in there, open. I always open the random chest. I'd go in there, open the random chest, and then that's all you need to do for the Helltide. I wouldn't say they're worth farming. Spend most of your time in nightmares. Now, there's one other mechanic we need to talk about. When you finish the campaign, you unlock the Tree of Whispers. Now, the Tree of Whispers has been buffed recently. It does give you more XP for completing it. And you do need to do Tree of Whispers, at least 3 or 4 levels of the Tree of Whispers, and that's going to help you really unlock all your glyphs. The Tree of Whispers drops a lot of glyphs, especially in the beginning when you don't have any. They'll usually drop 3 or 4 for every completion. And how you complete Tree of Whispers, as you can see by this bar, is you have to get 10 points. When you get 10 points, you go to the tree and it offers you a coffer. You open the coffer, you get items. Now, you get points through many ways, one of them being dungeons. So you do a dungeon, you get 5. Now, dungeons are actually the slowest way to complete Grim Favors. The fastest way is actually just by doing these smaller ones. There are only 1 or 3, like here's a 3. The 3 is usually just kill enemies and harvest motes, much like a Helltide. And these are usually in the zone. So what you can usually do is progress this one while completing these. And usually you can complete all of these about the time you finish this, and then you'll be close to your Tree of Whispers. It's pretty fast, pretty easy to farm. The coffers themselves have a couple different variations. They also spawn coffers that are only for, headgear, only for feet, only for chests. And they can spawn, all kinds of gear. They spawn ancestrals, they spawn uniques, they spawn legendaries. Overall, a great thing. Now, there's a few other things on the map you should be aware of, starting in Tier 3. World bosses. When you see a world boss pop up, go and do it. They're fun. They give lots of legendaries, especially a weekly. There's a few other events that you'll see pop up. They have like a little fireplace and a little circle. And the circle lets you know when they're spawning. And then the fireplace, it lets you know what type of event it is. And those are just basically you go in there in a group. You kill enemies, spawn a boss, kill a boss. You do that 3 times. You get a big boss. You kill the big boss. You get lots of rewards and obols. Now, so if you keep doing that, you'll quickly progress through Tier 3. And once you reach level 65 to 70, you can start working on the World Tier 4 dungeon. Now, that is going to be the final capstone dungeon that we have so far. They've talked about adding another one, but as of right now, that is the last one. So this dungeon is going to be pretty hard. It is a pretty difficult dungeon. It's going to let you know if you can do World Tier 4 on your own. So go in there. I would recommend trying it around, 65. I wouldn't really go in there anywhere earlier unless you are one of the really strong builds and you have a very strong build. Now with that, the enemies are around 73. So, 65 still might be too low for some builds. So go in there, when you can do it, complete it, and then we'll get started on World Tier 4. Now, when you go into World Tier 4, when you go into Torment, some things are different. One of the main being gear. You're going to have to redo your gear into Sacred, which is what I have on here. You can see it. You need to go get the Sacred equivalent of your gear. And Sacred is usually always going to be better. Sacred has a minimum item power that it can drop at, and that is usually higher than what you're going to have on. And so it's really easy to get some really strong gear really fast. You might have to sacrifice your build for a few minutes just to get, that higher item power, and then you can farm more content and do more. Now in World Tier 4, the main thing that we are going to be doing is Nightmare Dungeons. And now you're going to be focusing on getting higher tiers of Nightmare Dungeons. And this is going to allow you to basically level up extremely fast, try and get to 70, or excuse me, try and get to 80 and then onwards. And really you're going to be, this part is crafting your perfect gear set. So you're going to be looking for the legendaries that you need. You're going to be looking at their substats. You're going to be looking at what can improve, what's perfect, what you need. And this is where all of your build crafting is going to be done for the end game if you're ever going to try and clear Uber Lilith. The Nightmare Dungeons in World Tier 4 give even more XP. As you can see, they give 200% XP. And there's more uniques that can drop. So uniques are the items that aren't legendaries. They aren't anything. They're their own subclass. They are uniques. And they're pretty cool. They can be really strong. Like for instance, my build actually calls for a unique in the chest that when I teleport, it actually sucks enemies all together to me and allows me to burst them down much easier. Now, I have not been lucky enough to find it. They are some of the rarest items in the game. They are hard to find, but running high-level Nightmare Dungeons is the best way to get them. And I'm sure your build calls for some unique, either one or two, somewhere in the build. Nightmare Dungeons are going to be the majority of what you do in World Tier 4. But there's other stuff you can do. You still should be, you know, farming a Helltide here or there. Still, world bosses and world events are great. They're going to give you more XP. And overall, making sure you max out your Renown. Now, the big thing, of course, is Altars of Lilith. As you see, I have not finished Altars of Lilith in the last 3 zones. So that's what I'm going to be working on. Now, really get your Altars of Lilith, get your waypoints, and get your areas discovered. That way, if you're going to play Season 1 on launch, you have a little bit of a head start. Now, once we get a little bit later on, right now, there's kind of a content lack past 85. And there's a couple reasons they did that. Right now, the majority of the player base isn't there. The majority of the player base is still in World Tier 3. The average player is still in World Tier 3. Some of them, a large majority, are still in World Tier 1 and 2. So there's a very small percentage that are actually past that content gap. And right now, there's a pretty big content gap from 85 to 100 to Uber Lilith. Now, Uber Lilith is extremely challenging, extremely difficult, and some builds and some classes in general have a very hard time beating the fight. The mechanics are much more evolved than any other fight in the game, and overall you just need a very high item level and a very strong build. And really, the only main content you have to do right there is Nightmare Dungeons to get from 85 to 100. Now, thankfully, in the recent update, they've made that a lot smoother with the increased experience in Nightmare Dungeons. And so that's really going to be mainly what you're focusing on at that point, you know, finishing your Renown, finishing your build, just farming levels. So that is going to wrap it up for the Diablo 4 Endgame Guide. If you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check me out live on Twitch playing Diablo 4 at twitch.tv/MaliceFury. And with that, I hope to see you guys in a future video. Peace out.